burnout really happens when we're not thinking about the entire picture. We're honing in on one section of our life at a time. And that's really why when I'm working with clients, I actually have them set goals in 5 areas. And some would say I approach it kind of more holistically.
You are listening to Amplify Your Success podcast, episode 404. And today, let's unlock the CEO blueprint of a multi-million-dollar business without hustle harder. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's your host, Melanie Benson, authority amplifier and possibility igniter for expert-based business owners ready to hit 5- and 6-figure months. Today, I'm super excited to bring you another one of the graduates of my 100K Authority Accelerator program, and now also she's a member of my Visibility Accelerator Club, where we literally book you on hot aligned shows. I'm really honored to be able to showcase some of the graduates of the 100K Authority Accelerator. This guest, oh my gosh, I love when I get to really understand the magic, the superpower, the contribution that somebody's making in the world. And this guest, one of her superpowers is debunking the hustle harder culture around not just hitting 7 figures, but hitting multiple 7 figures. And she's got this message that really flips sustainable growth on its ear and just transforming business owners. And I love her lighthouse message so much. That's one of the things we do in the 100K Authority Accelerators. We uncover sometimes what's in your blind spot, and that is what I call a lighthouse message. It's what makes you unique, it's what makes you stand out, it's what separates you from everyone else that might sound like you. And as we worked through this process with this guest, it became very clear very quickly to me and our whole group that she's a badass, but not just a thought leader in the way she's teaching people and guiding people to achieve these multi-7-figure businesses, but she has a topic that really needed to be amplified. She needed to get this message out in a bigger way and help more business owners really have a life. So one of the things we do in the 100K Authority Accelerator program is help our clients identify and optimize what we call their signature framework. And this is a way of being able to communicate what you do to the world around you in multiple types of content, but specifically when you're getting an opportunity to be interviewed or speak, so that the way you share what you do is so compelling. The way you frame what you do is so buzzworthy, especially for the hosts of podcasts that are looking for standout content. And it's so catchy in any kind of content you're putting out, but it's a clarifier. It's a way of just really differentiating what you do and bringing your value to the front. So I love this client's journey and what we were able to do between getting her signature framework really dialed in, getting the lighthouse message, and then really helping her dial in her shows and her the right platforms to amplify her authority. And I'm sure you'll catch that as you listen into today's really powerful episode. We're currently taking applications for the 100K Authority Accelerator Fall Cohort. We do this in cohort style, and we only do it twice a year. So if you know that it's time because you are tired of feeling like the invisible expert, you're witnessing other people who probably aren't as good at what you do get bigger opportunities, get showcased on more stages and shows and podcasts, and you're thinking to yourself, why do I not get those invitations? What's missing that people don't get how valuable what I do is? Then chances are you would also benefit from the process we do in the 100K 3 Accelerator. I teach people how to monetize their visibility because they have a crystal clear message that's so compelling and so irresistible, and they amplify the impact of that message across multiple platforms and turning it into their number one client attraction strategy. So if you know it's time for that process in your business and your life, or even you just suspect, let's talk. I'll drop the link for the information on the 100K3 Accelerator and how to apply. It is an application program, and you can find it in the show notes, or you can go to 100kauthorityaccelerator.com and you'll find all the details. And I would love to see you get your lighthouse message buzzing out there in the industry. So let's talk. All right, now let's get into today's episode. Welcome back, Amplifiers. I'm excited to share with you how to unlock your multi-million-dollar CEO blueprint. Today, we're deep diving into scaling and sustaining beyond your first 7 figures, and I have an amazing guest joining us. She is such an amazing human. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I got to know her better through the 100K Authority Accelerator. She's now in the Visibility Accelerator Club. And it's just like, oh, I get so excited when I have amazing guests. So let me give her a proper introduction. Driven owners of service-based businesses hire Dana Earhart when they are ready to grow their multi-6 and 7-figure businesses without having to work longer hours and sacrificing their lifestyle. With decades of business and leadership consulting experience, Dana has been leading owners of service-based business owners to become thriving million and multi-million-dollar CEOs since 2013. Her secret: she has a proven optimization framework that has helped hundreds of clients across 9 industries rapidly create more business growth. And we're not just talking about another 10K a month, we're talking about 7-figure multiplication by having more time freedom, fun, and joy. Dana, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you today.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be here, and I've learned so much from you, and I certainly hope to be able to bring some value to your listeners as well. So thank
Oh, you are so welcome, and I already know the values there. It's been very exciting to see how you are working with these amazing service providers who hit these kind of like premature ceilings. It's like they're maxing out before they really hit their full revenue potential and in some cases impact potential. So you've been doing this for quite some time. And when we were talking about, well, what is your magic? What's your secret sauce? Like, what is it that's happening? Something kind of startling came out of that conversation. I think it might actually surprise our listeners of what you discovered as you would work with these very talented CEOs
you.
to get them out of that early 7 figures into multiple 7 figures. What came to light for you?
It really was. It was enlightening and disheartening. I think we've all heard the staggering statistics of how many businesses fail in the first year, second year, and how so few make it even to the 5 and 10-year mark. What a lot of people may not realize is that out of the 33 million small businesses out there, there's actually only that 14% that make it to 6-figure annual revenue. And even fewer, I've seen varying stats, about 9 to 10% that make it to that 7-figure mark, which, yes, it's fabulous. 3 million businesses make it there, but that's only 10%. And I think what was even more surprising and really disheartening for me, and being a recovering corporate workaholic, this one really hit home, is that 19% of small business owners work 60 hours or more a week, compared to the average like 38.5. And if you do the math over the course of a year, that's over 1,000 hours, 1,050 hours that those business owners are missing out on in their life with their friends, their family, their loved ones. And it doesn't have to be that way. And so that really has become kind of my passion, my movement is it is all about creating a business that supports the life that these business owners, these CEOs want. And that, quite frankly, is why I went into business too. I had an 18-month-old at home, and it was all about the time, freedom, and flexibility, while also being in control of my own salary, and not being reliant on someone else. And the fact is, even at 7 figures, I have business owners who are not yet fully paying themselves what they're worth. They're not taking that time off. They're not taking the vacations completely unplugged. And that's what we work on.
Hmm. That's so inspiring. And what I feel like you're doing is you're painting a picture of possibility here that maybe has been a conflict for many business owners who there's a part of them it's like, oh, I could get to like I could have like a multi seven-figure business and I really want to grow, but then the reality of how they've gotten where they are now, like, do you see that like or do you find that that stops them from really aspire or following through on those aspirations of growth?
Absolutely. I think they get stuck in that, well, I'll take that vacation when I hit this, or when I get this, or I'll hire that next employee when I make that money, instead of realizing that, oh, if I bring somebody on to support me now, I can make that money even faster.
Yeah, I just know your work enough to know the answer to this, but what I suspect happens a lot is you have to do a lot of mindset work and a lot of reframing where there's a limited thought about how it could get there to a possibility thought. And I think that's some of the most powerful work we do combined with, okay, there's actually a strategy, there's practical, tactical things that you do as well.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
we were in the green room and you mentioned something, and I want to bring it into the conversation here because we're talking about like sacrificing life, sacrificing time with people that we love and experiences that we desire for the someday possibility, right? Like, and you have a very clear position on a common term called life work balance.
Mhm. I
Tell
do.
us about that.
I do. And I think most often we hear people refer to it even as work-life balance, the work coming first. And it's twofold. A, I think that's totally backwards. We should be thinking about life first, and the business secondary. But more importantly, I think when somebody is striving for balance, I mean, balance in its truest definition is level. It's a 50-50 time spent in each area. That's not sustainable. Not to mention, that's not why most of us have gone into business. And so I really think that where the real magic happens is when somebody focuses on creating their life work rhythm.
Mhm.
And as I took piano lessons for 8 years, saxophone for 4, I know music. And when you're creating rhythm, sometimes the melody is louder and more prevalent, and sometimes the harmony is. And I think that's the best way to approach your life and business. When you take a vacation, you don't want to be thinking about business. When you're focused and intentionally growing a business, the 6, 8 hours you're at the office, not be thinking about your personal life, be focused on the business. And I think it's really about that adaptation to the flexibility that sometimes it won't be 50-50. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing again, another reframe, another awareness or a paradigm shift, if you will, is that this is not about balancing everything so it's all equal. It's about, well, and in my words, it's like integration. It's like sometimes there's more attention to the business, sometimes there's going to be more attention to other life experiences and recognizing they ebb and flow. Is that really what we're saying here?
Yes,
You know?
absolutely.
And so how does this play into what we both have talked about many times is this worldwide epidemic of burnout?
Mm. I think it's so crucial because burnout really happens when we're not thinking about the entire picture. We're honing in on one section of our life at a time. And that's really why when I'm working with clients, I actually have them set goals in 5 areas. And some would say I approach it kind of more holistically, because we're focusing on areas of health. That could be physical, mental, mindset, spiritual health. And then we focus on relationships with yourself. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you having those date nights? Are you having time with your kids and your grandkids? Then we move into the finance, the business, and the leadership. And what we know to be true, in fact, I was actually just talking to a woman, Lindsay Kohler, this morning, and she is, I want to get her title right, a behavior scientist, and really does studies and research on the power of happiness and fulfillment in productivity. And there are scientific studies, I think it was Management Science who did a study that says for every one unit on a scale of 1 to 10 that you as an individual are happy and fulfilled, you produce 12% more effectively. And as a leader, if we can bring that in instead of the burnout, bring in the happiness and the fulfillment, not only do we do better, we lead better, and we role model to our teams what it can look like.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I get excited thinking about it's not you're not sacrificing key areas of your life to grow the business. You're really like giving people permission to like to have all of what you want in life.
Yes.
And so I think this is a paradigm shift. And I've heard you talk about this idea that you approach growth completely backwards from some people's paradigms of how you do growth. Is that what you meant by it, or is there another layer to this?
There is another layer.
Okay, let's go deeper.
And as much as I can be incredibly analytical and I'm a spreadsheet guru when it comes to statistics and logistics, there's also what some would call the woo. And what I mean by that is so often individuals get caught up in their to-do list, and they're focused on the doing part of their role, of their job, of their tasks at hand in the day. And this is where I believe they're backwards. And instead, if we focused on the beingness, who are we being every day? And if we are only focused on a to-do list and the tasks, we are a robot. We are not thinking, we're not behaving in a way that a leader, that we want a leader, that a CEO of an organization wants, should, and will benefit from behaving when they're really focused on the end goal. Like, what is the goal that they are striving for? And then who does that goal require them to be? And when they can really step into that, the more magic happens. The beauty of that is that the doing starts coming more naturally.
Oh, I'm sure you've heard me say that I feel like I'm one woo on the woo woo scale. Would you
Yes.
also say that you're one woo, or are you two woo? Or did you get to 3 yet?
No, I don't think I'm at 3 yet, but
Yeah.
definitely, 1 to 2, and any given day it may fluctuate a little bit. But yes,
Yeah.
there's definitely, and I believe I've become a better leader when I've allowed that to start coming in, uh, and not just be a taskmaster and expect my team to be taskmasters.
I think you just um, brought something into the conversation that's so important, and that is like being a leader, being a CEO is so much more than the like get people to get things done. It's so much more than data and spreadsheets, as you said. And there's like the being part of what we bring to the table is where so much comes alive, so much of the magic and the things that we can't analyze and predict. But the more we are being true to ourselves and true to the things that are important to us, the more like things just seem to feel kind of effortless. At least that's been my experience.
Absolutely. I think when even myself, when I look back at times where I may have felt like the needle wasn't moving as fast as I wanted, if you're not careful and you default to just thinking you have to do more, you end up making it so much more difficult. And honestly, usually the journey is much longer because there's a lot more detours than if you actually just stepped back. And that saying that slow down to speed up. And so oftentimes it is that slowing down to really kind of get grounded in who you're being
Mm, yeah.
and really think about who you're being. And I think so often that's a forgotten exercise, is we don't think about who we're being. We focus on what we think needs to be done.
Yeah. Well, as the old saying goes, we are human beings, not human
Yes,
doings.
yes.
And speaking of human doings versus human beings, let's explore a little bit about where we tend to get in our own way. A term that I've personally been familiar with because I got called out on this early on in my growth was being a bottleneck.
Yes,
How do we start to recognize if we've become the bottleneck to this possibility that we're laying out for someone today?
absolutely. And I think it is so this is I'll run off through a list of areas that can be that indicator that we have become our own bottleneck. And it's a list we should revisit maybe monthly, because it's really easy to default back to some of these practices in the moment. But first and foremost, if you are constantly running from meeting to meeting, and just meeting without necessarily having an agenda, without an itinerary, without calls to action at the end of the meeting, and follow up on that. If you are spending your entire day just putting out fires, and as leaders, of course, the number one indicator is if you are spending your entire day or the majority of your day in the day-to-day operations. The big question is who's leading the organization? And chances are no one is, which means you're taking a lot of detours and you may not even realize it, but you're certainly making the journey a lot longer. Also, there's little time spent on revenue generating efforts for you or your team. And also, are you even evaluating the numbers
Mm.
on a regular basis? And one thing I see often is it might not be till the 10th or the 15th of the next month that you're looking at numbers from last month. That means your numbers are not being taken into account. You're almost leading your company, your organization blindly because you are not knowing what the numbers are on a daily or at least weekly basis. Not delegating is another huge area where we become bottlenecks. When I start hearing leaders say, oh, it was just easier to get it done myself. I could crank it out in 10, 15 minutes. It would have taken me over an hour to train somebody else. That's an immediate red flag that you're becoming your own bottleneck. Not spending time with your team and really mentoring them. So often I think CEOs get caught up in thinking that the investment of a team member um, is at the point of hire. And they will be most served by understanding that is the start of the investment. And you will only grow to the extent of your weakest link. And you want to make sure, A, that as the CEO, you're not the weakest link, but you also want to ensure that if you want your business to grow, that means you need to grow your talent as well. And so really think about that continually investing. If you are working more than 40 hours, you could be your own bottleneck if you're not taking care of yourself, your sleep, your hydration, your exercise, your mindfulness, if you're missing date nights, if you're not holding yourself accountable. Those are all red flags that you're becoming your biggest bottleneck. And last but not least is actually, I guess there's two items. One, you're hiring for where you are instead of hiring for where you're headed. I think that's something that a lot of times people aren't even thinking of. They're like, well, yeah, I need this now. Absolutely. But let's be proactive. What are you going to need 6 months from now, 3 months from now, when you hit the growth you're expecting? And also, we've all heard what gets tracked or gets measured grows. And so it's so important to really be tracking results in all departments of your business and evaluating those on a regular basis. We hear the term, the acronym KPIs so often. KPIs, it's not just about setting KPIs, it's about making sure that we're tracking those along the way and leading from that instead of after the fact.
Oh, that is such a comprehensive list. And it's, I was like, been there, check, been there, check, been there, check. And before we go to the fun questions that I always like to ask my guests, I just want to ask a little follow-up question around that because we've talked about your holistic approach to setting goals. We've talked about, like most of us are doing growth backwards. We're not focusing on the right things first as a foundation, but you hit something that I think is such a stumbling point and really becomes a huge barrier for so many people, and that is hiring for the growth you're going towards rather than the growth that you are today. And I think a lot of people get into this very, very interesting conversation in their head about what can I afford? So, because I know for myself personally, investing in team is such a huge catapulter. What is the one thing somebody would consider doing right now if their goal is doubling the revenue they have today around team? What should they be doing first?
Great question. And, I think one of the best concepts out there is buying your time back. And what is meant by that is look at the tasks, look at the duties on your plate that based on your hourly rate, even if you're not paying yourself hourly, what is your hourly rate? And evaluate against that rate what's on your plate that could be done by someone who is making less than that hourly rate. That is the best way. You delegate, you offload that task and responsibility so that you can focus on leading that growth and generating that revenue, whether it's you yourself generating it or if you're leading your sales team who is out there in the community and making those sales.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I know you inspired our Amplify community so much today. I'm inspired listening to you. And I'm like, I got to go back and look at my KPIs. But I would love it if we could share how our listeners can take a next step with you, find out more about Dana and her work in the world. What would you recommend that somebody who's like, I got to do this? What's the first step they should take?
First step, absolutely. You can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn under Dana Earhart. I welcome you to connect, reach out to me personally if you'd like. If you are really wanting to dive in and start evaluating how to become that $1 million and multi-million dollar CEO, I do have a free gift to your listeners, and they can simply go to danaearhart.com/millions. And that will bring them to a free guide that I have put together that they can be working through. And of course, if anyone is interested in jumping on a Zoom call with me to explore personally what it looks like to work together, I absolutely would welcome that as well.
And let me just double check. Is it million or millions? Because I think it might be million, but we will
It
link it up in the show notes for you guys.
I think you are correct. I misspoke. So it's million singular, but we probably should switch that to millions plural.
Or have it in both places, right?
There you go.
No matter whether you want another million or millions, you'll be
Yeah,
able
there
to
you go.
find Dana. Yeah, that sounds like a really, really valuable resource no matter where you're at. I highly recommend that you go do that. And hey, go reach out to Dana. Tag us if you're listening to this episode today. You found it on social media. Let Dana know one of the ahas. It's such a reward as a guest expert when your community says, "Oh my God, I loved when you shared this on Amplify Your Success. Thank you." It's a beautiful gift that you get to give to our guest experts. So give them a little shout out and let them know what you got out of today's episode. Dana, now is the moment that I like to ask a couple of fun questions so our community can get to know you, the human being, a little bit better, and the leader of a business that's been growing over and over again for the years. If you were to look back on your journey as you stepped into this role of coach, consultant, leader to your clients, what was the boldest thing you ever did that ended up amplifying the success of your business?
Ooh, great question. I think the boldest thing, after leaving corporate America, leaving the steady paycheck to launch a business with an 18-month-old in tow, I think it is the concept of continually investing in myself and my business. By far, over the last decade, I have probably invested multiple times over in my own college in comparison to what I invested in my college education. And I'm just a firm believer that if you're not growing, you risk being in a state of decay and going backwards. And it's also a gift I want to give to myself, that if I'm encouraging other people to be investing in themselves and their business, how can I not be investing in myself and my business? So I think that's the boldest thing, because I know if some people knew to what extent the investment happens, they would be shocked. And yet I would redo every penny that I've invested because it's gotten me to where I am today.
Well, it's how we met, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was very honored too that you chose to invest again in the work that I do around 100K through Accelerator, because I watched you go from being an amazingly talented, powerful being to honing in this message that what it just made you a lighthouse. And it's like you were always there, like you were always powerful. And then just getting that message totally dialed in, it unleashes your magic so other people can see it and choose it and lean into it. And it is very beautiful to watch. That's one of the things I love. And just to take this step deeper, it's one of the things I love so much about helping people with their messaging. It's already there. Right? Just like, boom, let's just make it shine brighter. What is
Absolutely. And I just want to say that I am so grateful for that, because I really knew that I probably even said it to you at one point. I feel like I am damn good, and sorry for cursing, at what I do. And yet when it came to how do I share it? How do I hone the messaging so that other people actually understand what a business growth strategist is, and the magic that can be created? I felt like I was falling flat. And so that is why I wanted to jump right in with you and really get clear on that. So thank you.
Oh, it's my honor. You're a rock star. Okay, last question. Um, there are moments where we maybe resist something or we know we should do something and we kind of put it off. And then later you're like, why did I wait so long to do that? Is there one thing that once you did it, you're like, man, this was such a smart decision, but you waited too long and you wish you would have done it sooner?
Um, well, it probably happens repeatedly in different areas, but it's just the learning to get out of my own way, and, embracing that it's okay not to know everything. We're not meant to know everything. And that's why when you surround yourself with people who know more than you in certain areas through mentorship, as well as who you hire to support you from a team capacity, that is absolutely where the magic happens. And it's not a bad thing for team members to know more than you in certain areas. In fact, that's what you want. And yet, oftentimes, I was resisting that out of fear of, does that make me less of a leader? And
Mm.
no, I think it makes me and anyone else who's in the same situation a far better leader.
I don't know why, but I feel a newsletter article coming from that little tidbit
I
there.
think there
That's
might be.
very powerful, Dana. And I know so many people find themselves in that space of like as hiring up, we might call it, right?
Yeah,
Be willing to hire up.
yeah.
Really, really sage wisdom to close our conversation today. Friends, as you're listening in, I got chills. I'm excited about what's possible for you and like, really, I want you to decide today, where is my reach? What is my revenue? What is the results I want to be creating? Am I ready for next level support? Head over to danaearhart.com/million and download that resource. Tune into that conversation, get out of your own way, and start to make the greater impact. Dana, thank you so much for bringing your wisdom to us today.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. Be sure to join us right now in the Amplify Your Authority community at authorityamplifiers.com, and I'll share my 7 proven tips to be a highly paid expert that stands out in a crowded market. Plus, we're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.